What's up everyone, Darcblade here with another guide to Monster Hunter Rise. In this video we're going to be covering a pre-Sunbreak build, this time for the Greatsword. Now as always, what is a pre-Sunbreak build? Well, it's an endgame Monster Hunter Rise build that we can take into the start of Master Rank at the start of Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak and take on the starting monsters relatively comfortably. Of course, as you progress through the game, this build will easily be replaced with Master Rank gear, but this build is aimed at giving you a head start. Now before we get into the video, a reminder that if you enjoy these builds and want to see more of them, please consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like on the video, as we make multiple builds for Monster Hunter as well as other games. Now when it comes to the Greatsword, it's a very powerful weapon in Monster Hunter Rise, and can almost be divided into two playstyles. You have the more traditional way of playing the Greatsword, which utilises the True Charge Slash, and then you have the new, tankier way of playing the Greatsword that utilises the Rage Slash mechanic, which enables you to take a hit unfazed and then perform a follow-up attack. Whilst on paper the True Charge Slash will always deal more damage, the Rage Slash gives you a little bit more flexibility when it comes to taking on monsters, so it's down to how you like to play the Greatsword. Regardless though, for this pre-Sunbreak build, I've gone for a little bit of a balanced build that focuses more on DPS more than anything else. It is quite an easy build to craft as well, so let's get into this. So for this balanced Greatsword build, you'll need the full Valstrax armor set, which includes the Valstrax helm, Valstrax mail, Valstrax braces, Valstrax coil, and the Valstrax greaves. As for the petalace, I'm using an absolute petalace, although this is down to personal preference. And then when it comes to your talismans, luckily with this build, all the major skills are covered within the armor and decorations, so you can use whatever talisman you have available to you. No one in the game really has the absolute same talismans, but I went for a talisman to complement our survivability, as it has Divine Blessing at level 3, a tier 3 decoration slot, and a tier 1 decoration slot, plus a point in recovery up. The main reason for this is Divine Blessing will help keep us alive, as we need your health to be 80% or lower for maximum DPS. As for the weapon, I'm using the Dark of Night, which is the Nagakuga Greatsword, and this has an attack increase rampage skill attached to it. Now normally the Dark of Night, the Nagakuga Greatsword, has a very low raw attack for a Greatsword build. Normally Greatswords want to focus on higher raw attack, but the Nagakuga Greatsword has white sharpness plus massive affinity and a tier 2 decoration slot, elevating it above a lot of the other Greatswords in the game. If you did want to use something else, the Abominable Greatsword, the Gosfara Greatsword could be an option, or you could go with a Rampage Greatsword. Now as for the decorations, this is where we fill in the gaps in our skills, so I've gone for Critical Jewels to max out crit boost, Steadfast Jewels to max out stun resistance, Charger Jewels to max out focus, and then finally I had 2 jewels to play around with thanks to the talisman, so I've gone for an Expert Jewel for an extra point in critical eye and a Brace Jewel for a point in flinch free, which can be replaced if you're playing purely solo. So if you've done what I've done here, you have a build with a raw attack of 218 with no element. You have 40% base affinity, which can be 90% when you take into account weakness exploit. If you wanted this to be 100%, you would have to include 2 more expert jewels into your build, which can be done if you wanted to drop the Divine Blessing talisman. And you'll also have a decent chunk of white sharpness. You'll then have a very strong defense of 581 that is strong against dragon, but unfortunately weak to the other elements, although this isn't an issue when Dragonheart kicks in. And then when it comes to your switch skills, these are kind of down to personal preference. To be honest, this build works well whether you like Rage Slash or True Charge Slash. Now as for the skills, first of all you have Dragonheart at level 5. This is a result of the Valstrax armor set. Dragonheart at level 5, whenever we have 80% health or less, we will contract Dragon Blight. But in doing this, it will set all our elemental resistances to 50 and will gain 10% increased attack power. You'll then have Resentment at level 3. Resentment is a skill that whenever we have a portion of red health on our health bar, our raw attack is increased. You'll then have Resuscitate at level 3. Resuscitate is a skill that kicks in whenever our hunter is inflicted with a blight or something, and this works in unison with the Dragon Blight that we get from Dragonheart. So when we have the Dragon Blight from Dragonheart on our hunter, Resuscitate will kick in, granting us plus 20 raw attack. You'll then have Critical Boost at level 3. Critical Boost is a skill that increases the damage of our critical hits, but this only applies to the raw portion of an attack, not the elemental or element portion, but as this build is all about raw attack, this is a beneficial skill. You'll then have Weakness Exploit at level 3. Weakness Exploit is a skill that increases our affinity whenever we're attacking monster weak points. Weakness Exploit at level 3 can increase our affinity by 50%. You'll then have Focus at level 3. Focus is a skill that increases how quickly we can charge up the Greatsword's charged attacks, allowing us to perform the Rage Slash and True Charge Slash a lot more quickly. You'll then have Divine Blessing at level 3, which is a result of my talisman, and to be honest, an optional skill, but it's still useful. Divine Blessing gives us a chance at taking reduced damage when we take a hit from a monster. This works well in unison when we consider that we have to have our health below 80% in order to get the Dragon Heart bonus. You'll then have stun resistance at level 3, a quality of life skill that I like to use that prevents all stun effects on our hunter. And then you'll have optional skills. First of all is Critical Eye at level 1, increasing the base affinity of this build. You'll then have Recovery Up at level 1, a result of our Talisman, which increases how much health we get back when using potions and such. And then you'll have Flinch Free at level 1, which prevents minor knockbacks on our hunters, including knockback from allies. So there we have it, that's the balanced build I would suggest using for the Greatsword at the start of Sunbreak. It has DPS options, especially if you can maintain that health at the 80% mark or lower, and it does have survival options thanks to Divine Blessing, the defensive aspects of Dragonheart and more. But no build is absolutely perfect, so let's go through the pros and cons. First of all, the biggest pro for this build is its damage output. Whilst the Nagakuga Greatsword has low raw attack, this build is still able to deal a lot of damage to monsters thanks to our high affinity rating, Dragonheart bonus, resentment, and resuscitate. On top of that, this build has some defensive options as well. It is risky dropping below that 80% mark to get that damage bonus, but we are kept alive by skills such as Dragonheart, Divine Blessing, and stun resistance. And then finally is that this build can be used against any monster in the game. This build is an elementalist build, so we don't have to worry about a monster's elemental or element resistances. Unfortunately though, there are some cons to this build. One of the biggest cons is unfortunately we have to have our health lower than 80% in order to get the maximum DPS output. And the other con is, despite all the bonuses that counter it, the Nagakuga Greatsword is on the lower end of the raw attack scale. But overall it shouldn't matter, the cons are far outweighed by the pros for this build, making it a powerful Greatsword build that should be able to take on the early Master Rank monsters in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. In a way it does suck that we're using an entire armor set in the form of the Valstrax armor set, but it really is one of the most effective full armor sets in the game, providing us damage and defense. Yes, having to manage your health at that 80% mark is annoying, but especially in the case with the Greatsword, the trade-off is worth it. But what are your thoughts? Please leave a comment down below, and until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you another pre-Sunbreak build, this time for the Greatsword in Monster Hunter Rise. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.